The sun scorched the pavement behind the diner like a punishment handed down from above. Norma stepped out the back door, her apron damp and clinging to her lower back, cigarette already between her fingers. She lit it without looking, the lighter's flame barely visible in the thick summer glare. The lunch shift had wrung her dry. Too many tables, too many complaints, not enough tips to matter. Most days, she just sat on the back steps to breathe. But today, something pulled her farther. Past the grease bin, past the chain-link fence, out toward the lot where old cars went to be forgotten. They sat like relics, engines long cooled, tires melted into the gravel. Norma didn't know why she kept walking. She just did. As if silence itself was calling her toward something she hadn't noticed before. Halfway between a crumpled Honda and an old blue Buick, she paused. The Buick hadn't moved in weeks. Maybe more. Its windshield was filmed over with dust, and one of the hubcaps was missing. Norma stared at it without reason. She hadn't seen anyone near it, hadn't even thought about it. But something caught her eye, a flicker in the rear seat, a shadow, maybe. Her stomach tightened. She stepped closer, peering through the passenger window. At first, it looked like a sweater crumpled on the leather. Then the shape shifted, barely, a tremble. A tail. Her heart began to thud, slow but deep, like a warning knocking from the inside out. She tried the door. Locked. Of course it was. She cupped her hands around her face and leaned in tighter. There, in the back seat, curled into itself like a wounded thought, was a cat, small, gray, motionless except for the weak lift and fall of its breath. Its body rose and fell in shallow pulses, ribs sticking out like fence wire under its fur. The inside of the car looked unbearable, the kind of heat you could drown in without water. Norma stepped back, eyes scanning the empty lot, but no one was around. She called out once. Twice. Nothing. The cat didn't even flinch. Only blinked slowly like it had already said goodbye. Her first instinct was to run for help, but help felt too far, and time felt too short. She remembered the thermometer outside the diner's window reading 104 earlier. In a closed car, it could be over 130. Deadly heat, a furnace on wheels. She pulled her phone from her apron, but saw the no-signal warning flash red. Typical. Norma stared at the car again, frozen for a second in the swell of panic. Then she moved, fast but focused, around to the back of the car, inspecting each window. The cat's head lolled slightly toward her, barely conscious. Her breath caught in her throat. Norma had never broken into a car before. Rick would have laughed at the idea. Rick, who used to keep tools under every seat, just in case. He'd been gone 4 years now, and she still carried one thing from his toolbox, a small glass cutter, hung on her keychain like a charm she never expected to use. Her fingers found it without thinking. She crouched beside the rear window, hand trembling. "I'm sorry," she whispered, voice cracking under the heat. With one quick motion, she pressed the cutter into the corner of the glass and twisted. A faint score. Then another. The window cracked like a dry branch. The sound made her jump. For a second, she looked around again, expecting someone to yell, to stop her. No one came. Just the cicadas, screaming louder now in the trees. She struck again. This time, the glass splintered fully, collapsing inward with a sound like falling ice. Heat poured out of the car as if the Buick had exhaled a death rattle. Norma reached in, careful not to cut herself, and found the door handle. It opened with a tired groan. The air inside was thick, soupy, suffocating. The cat didn't move. She stepped in with one foot and leaned down, scooping it gently into her arms. Its fur was wet, not with water, but with sweat and heat. Norma felt her own tears rising, uninvited and fast. "You're okay," she said, though she wasn't sure it was true. The cat didn't resist, didn't respond. Just pressed against her like it had no strength left to do anything else. She pulled it close to her chest and backed out of the car, her own skin burning from the contact with the vinyl seat. Her arms trembled. Her knees nearly gave, but she kept walking, across the lot, past the broken glass, past the cigarette she'd dropped and forgotten. She pushed open the diner's back door with her shoulder, cat still pressed against her. "Call a vet," she said to the cook who stood frozen, staring. No, she didn't wait for a response. She moved straight to the sink, turned on the cold water, and dampened a towel. Then she wrapped it gently around the cat's body, murmuring words she couldn't hear over the ringing in her ears. Behind her, the line cooks whispered, customers craned their necks, someone pulled out a phone, but Norma didn't care. All she could hear was the weak, rattling breath of something that hadn't given up. Minutes later, headlights screeched to a stop outside. A tech from the emergency clinic ran in, bag in hand asking for the cat. Norma didn't hesitate. She handed it over, fingers shaking, eyes locked on the tiny, fragile chest still rising. Will she make it? She asked. The tech didn't answer, not yet. Just turned and rushed back out the door. Norma stood there alone, blood on her arm, glass on her shoes, hands empty. And for the first time in a long, long while, she realized just how loud an empty room could be. Then she heard it, a soft mewl, barely there, like a whisper from a place halfway between life and something else. It wasn't coming from the car. It wasn't coming from the hallway. It was in her memory now, and in her chest, too. The sound of something choosing, even in pain, not to let go. She stepped outside, into the light, her eyes scanning the horizon. And she whispered back, "Hold on. Please, just hold on." The clinic sat on the edge of town, tucked behind a shuttered gas station and a billboard for dentures. Norma followed the tech inside, her arms still scratched and damp, her apron stiff with salt and worry. The lobby was quiet, air thick with antiseptic and soft beeps from machines behind closed doors. She didn't know where to sit, so she stood, hands clenched, eyes fixed on the swinging door the cat had disappeared behind. Time stretched thin, pulled tight by silence and fluorescent lights. A receptionist offered her water. She took it, drank, didn't taste a thing. Her body was still in motion. Her heart hadn't slowed since the window broke. She kept seeing the cat's eyes in her head, glazed but alive, the way they had fluttered open for just a second when the towel touched her fur. So small, so still. Norma had never held anything so light that carried so much weight. The vet came out once to ask about the incident. Norma told her everything: the car, the heat, the cutter, the moment of choice. The vet nodded, scribbled notes, disappeared again. Norma stood again, sat again, paced. She didn't notice the receptionist watching her with quiet curiosity, or the other patient who left without being seen. Her husband would have told her she did too much, that cats run wild, that the world spins on, no matter what you do. But Rick had also left his coat on her chair for 6 winters straight, even after he passed. He'd carved her name into his first toolbox. He wasn't cruel, just tired. Norma wondered if he'd be proud of her now, or shake his head and chuckle like he used to. She pictured him in the passenger seat, arm out the window, sunburned and humming along to Old Country. The memory felt close, like it had been waiting for this exact moment to rise up and sit beside her. The door finally swung open again, softer this time. The vet, a woman in her 30s with tired eyes and steady hands, stepped out holding a clipboard. "She's stable," she said, voice low but sure. "She was dangerously dehydrated, but she's responding to fluids. Her temperature's coming down." Norma's legs nearly gave out. She sat, her hands clutching each other like they needed to hold something or break. The vet continued, explaining how close it had been. Another hour and she might not have made it. Norma nodded slowly, staring down at her shoes. "There's no microchip," the vet added. "No collar, no ID. We've alerted animal control in case someone reports her missing, but..." She didn't finish the sentence. Norma knew what that meant. Forgotten. Thrown away. Or worse, left on purpose. Her throat tightened. "What happens if no one comes?" she asked. The vet hesitated. "Then she'd go to the shelter. But given her condition, it's hard to say what they'll..." Norma raised her hand gently, stopping her. "I'll cover whatever she needs," she said. "If no one comes, she comes with me." They let her into the recovery room, past crates of other animals, and into a quiet corner. The cat lay on a soft fleece blanket, hooked to a thin 4-drip. Her eyes were open now. Just barely. Enough to meet Norma's gaze. Enough to say, "I'm still here." Norma crouched beside the crate and whispered something she didn't remember until much later. Just a soft, "You're safe now." She didn't try to pet her, didn't reach in. Just stayed there, keeping her company, letting her breathe. The vet watched from a distance, said nothing. It wasn't medicine anymore. It was something else. Norma stayed for almost an hour, talking about nothing and everything. She told the cat about the diner, about the jukebox that only played sad songs, about the grease trap that always overflowed on Fridays. About the cook, Morris, who kept pretending he didn't like cats even though he fed the alley strays every night. The cat didn't move much, but her eyes never left Norma. That was enough. At some point, the receptionist brought her a coffee. Norma didn't drink it, she just held it for warmth. Her hands hadn't stopped shaking. When she finally stood to leave, it felt like walking away from something too delicate to turn her back on. She left her number, her card, her promise. "Call me for anything," she said. "Anything at all," the vet nodded. "We'll keep her overnight, monitor vitals, but she's got a shot." Norma nodded, forced a small smile, and walked out into the thick, late-afternoon heat. Her car was still parked crooked outside, the glass cutter on the floorboard, glitter from the broken window, clinging to the seat. She climbed in, closed the door, and sat for a long time, the engine off, the silence deeper than ever. Just before she turned the key, she whispered into the empty car, "You're not going back in there." She wasn't sure if she meant the shelter, or the Buick, or something else entirely. All she knew was, something fragile had survived, and so had something in her. She brought the cat home in a cardboard carrier, balanced on the passenger seat like something fragile and sacred. The vet had given her instructions: bland food, small portions, watch for fever, but Norma only half listened. Her mind was focused on the soft breathing behind the tiny air holes, on the slight pressure of life inside the box. When she carried it through the front door of her house, she moved slower than she had in years. She set it gently on the kitchen floor, opened the flap, and waited. Nothing happened. Just the tick of the wall clock and the low hum of the fridge. For nearly 10 minutes, neither of them moved. Norma sat on the floor, cross-legged, aching at the hips, but still. Her fingers brushed against the cool tile as she watched. Finally, a head appeared, cautious, sharp-eared, whiskers twitching. Then a paw. Then the whole cat emerged, gingerly stepping into a space that didn't smell like suffering. She didn't run, didn't hide. Just walked a few paces and curled beside the leg of the refrigerator. Norma didn't say anything at first. Just breathed. After everything, this silence felt like a gift. A pause between storms. The next days passed in a soft rhythm. Norma stayed home more, taking shifts off, leaving early when she could. She laid out small bowls of water in every room, placed clean towels near windows for resting, and left the carrier open in case the cat needed retreat. She didn't touch her much. Didn't dare. But she spoke. About old songs, about her first car, about the time Rick tried to fix the dryer and nearly set the porch on fire. Her voice filled the empty space like candlelight. And though the cat never meowed, she listened. That was all Norma needed. At night, the cat took to sleeping on the foot of Norma's bed. The first time it happened, Norma woke and thought she was dreaming. A warm weight pressed near her ankles. Steady breathing in the dark. She didn't move, didn't even reach for the light. Just lay there, eyes wet, as a softness settled over her like a prayer. She hadn't shared her bed with anyone since Rick. Not like this. Not with something alive, warm, choosing to stay. It made the grief feel different. Not smaller, just not so alone. By the end of the week, Norma stood at the kitchen counter holding a small red tag between her fingers. She'd had it engraved that morning. The pet shop guy hadn't asked questions, just smiled when she read the name aloud. Cinder, she'd said. Like what's left after the burning, like a beginning. It had come to her quietly while she watched the cat sunbathe on the living room rug, her gray fur glowing like smoke in the morning light. There was a piece to the name, not sad, not heavy, just true. She clipped the tag to a soft green collar and crouched down beside the fridge, holding it out gently. Cinder, she said. That's you if you want it. The cat sniffed it once, then stepped forward, allowing Norma to fasten it. No claws, no resistance, just trust. A delicate, impossible kind of trust that made Norma's throat close. She sat back, staring at her, smiling in that quiet, surprised way people do when they're almost afraid to feel happy again. It became their routine, mornings in the window, afternoons watching old westerns on the couch, nights with the quilt pulled up and the house quiet but full. Cinder never meowed, not once. But she communicated in other ways. A glance, a twitch of the tail. The way she touched Norma's hand with her forehead just before curling up to sleep. Norma, in turn, stopped talking to the walls and started talking to her. About everything. About nothing. She didn't expect answers. She just liked not being invisible anymore. And slowly Norma began to change. Not loudly, Not all at once, but the house grew warmer. The curtains got washed. The old porch chair, long abandoned, was fixed and used again. She even brought a small pot of rosemary back to life on the windowsill. It wasn't about the cat, not entirely. It was about having someone to care for. Someone who didn't need her to be cheerful or healed or whole, just present. Just real. Summer softened into September, but the heat lingered like a ghost that wouldn't leave. Norma kept the windows cracked and the fans humming low. Cinder had claimed the old quilt in the living room as her throne. Each afternoon she'd stretch out in a pool of light like she was born to belong there. The quiet had changed. It no longer pressed in from the corners. It expanded gently, peacefully, the way music might if it were made of sunlight and breath. Norma still spoke little at the diner, but customers noticed something different. Something in the way she stood straighter. Or smiled when no one was watching. The Buick was towed 2 weeks after the rescue. Animal control never found the owner. The plates had been expired. The registration was fake. The story was over before it began. Norma watched from the kitchen window as the truck hauled it away, the back tires dragging like dead weight. She didn't feel angry, just sat in a quiet, tired way. Whoever left that cat had already disappeared. Maybe they'd been desperate, maybe cruel. It didn't matter. What mattered was who stayed. What mattered was Cinder, curled beside the sink now, clean and breathing and real. Norma started writing again, not stories, but letters, some to Rick, some to herself. Some she didn't sign at all. She kept them in a drawer next to old receipts and an unopened birthday card from her sister. Words poured out easier with Cinder nearby. Like the silence between them gave permission to remember things Norma thought she'd buried. You can't go back to what you were, but you can grow something from where you are. And sometimes it's enough just to care. She folded that one neatly and taped it behind a cupboard door. A reminder for the hard mornings. On a Friday, after the breakfast rush, Norma cleaned the front window of the diner for the first time in months. Then she taped a new letter right at eye level, just beside the open sign. It was short, just 4 lines written in black marker on cream paper. To the person who left a cat in a locked car, she lived. She is loved. She will never be alone again. People paused to read it. Some smiled, others blinked fast and looked away. No one tore it down. One customer left a bag of treats on the counter without a word. Another paid double and asked, quietly, "Is the cat okay?" Norma only nodded. Cinder's story had become a quiet part of the diner, not in gossip or spectacle, but in the way people lingered a little longer. Held doors open, left food for the alley strays out back. Small things, kind things. At night, Norma sat on the porch with a blanket over her knees and Cinder curled against her side. The breeze carried the scent of dry grass and car exhaust. A familiar ache lived in her chest, the kind grief leaves behind even after it stops hurting. But the ache didn't rule her anymore. It just rode beside her, softer now, like a memory she no longer feared. Cinder stirred and stretched, pressing her nose into Norma's arm before settling again. That was the thing about animals. Norma had come to believe. They don't need to speak to tell the truth. Before bed, she turned off the lights, checked the locks, filled the water bowls. Her house, once filled with dust and silence, now held rhythms again. Cinder followed her down the hall, tail high, then leapt onto the bed without hesitation. Norma smiled in the dark. Not the smile of someone trying, the smile of someone home. She whispered, "Good night, little fire," and pulled the blanket to her chest. Outside, the night held its breath, peaceful, unbroken, and for the first time in a long, long while, Norma slept without dreaming of what she'd lost. Because now, she had something to keep.